It looks like we are live, Star. All right. Now, before I jump into this, let me just check. I want to make sure that I can see what's going on within the Facebook group too, because with this platform that I'm using, oftentimes I don't get to see any comments that actually come through. So let me just go on here before I even start connecting. And then that'll give people a little bit more time to jump on if possible. Let's see. Oops. Okay. Yay. Okay. All right. I can see it. Perfect. Okay. I'll just put it down so at least I can show. Okay. All right, everyone. We are live. For those of you, I know many of you in the Wine and Mastermind community, oftentimes I know you catch this on replay. So we're going to go ahead and kick this party off because I have an amazing speaker, a great friend that I want to chat with tonight. And it is so much that I want to uncover, I want to unpack during this conversation. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Before I introduce this lovely lady, I first want to let you all know that just as a reminder for those of you who missed it, well, those of you who are new, welcome. So first of all, for those of you who have just joined the Wine and Mastermind community, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for being a part of this group. This is our Power Talk session. We host these every Wednesday. So we do this every Wednesday, and the goal is to speak with other mompreneurs who are out here doing it, y'all, who are out here living their lives. They are taking action on their fullest potential right now, okay? And they are building businesses. They are building empires that align with who they are. And it's all based on a story, right? It's all based on things that that we feel that is going to be impactful for us, but also impactful for the people that we serve. So I hope that you're going to find this helpful. For those of you, if you have not heard, I have a book that's going to be released, and the pre-sale, yay. The pre-sales date is January 23rd, 23, which is my birthday. So that's going to be just for pre-sales, just to, yeah, girl, let's go. I can't wait, y'all. I cannot wait until this book is finished. I'm going through a lot of, I would say it's a lot of work that I'm having to put behind the book right now. Let me just say that, to not go into too much detail. It's a lot of work, but it's going to be so worth it. And I cannot wait for you all to grab a copy of it. And hopefully it's something that's going to help you as well. But that part of the reason why I wrote that book is also stemmed from the reason why I established this platform, Wine and Mastermind Community. So it really is to bring together women such as ourselves, right? Like, we are moms, we are wives, we have multiple priorities, we're wearing a lot of hats, and we're just trying to figure out how can I become more? How can I do more right now? I don't want to wait until I'm retired, right? I don't want to wait until, all the kids are grown. Basically the way we were raised, right? Like, I'm ready to start living right now today. And I'm trying to figure out how can I continue to live today. And so we want to inspire the women who are here in this community to be able to start living today, start taking action on your life. It don't have to be a business, right? But as long as you're doing something that aligns with who you are, right? It's aligning with your work, aligning with your life, aligning with your relationships, right? That's what's going to be important. So that's the reason why I am here, why I have this community here established. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and jump into our Power Talk discussion for tonight. All right. So we have here Miss Starr Davis. She is the founder of the Starr Institute, and I am so excited that you were able to join us today, Starr. Thank you so much for this opportunity, girl. I know honestly, before I even started these Power Talks, I knew that you were one of the people that I wanted to have on here. You are just a gem. You are a great friend. For those of you, Starr, I've known Starr. We actually met through our children, right? Like,
correct.
through our children, like they were going to preschool together, and she and we instantly connected. And then come to find out, same sorority. Like, it's just a lot of things. Let's go with the crimson and cream, baby. But yes, like it was instant connection, and come to find out, it was so many things that we had, so many similarities that we shared, and our beliefs and values, and I think that's why we've been able to stay in contact. What was that, like, what, 5 years ago? I feel like it was like 5 years ago. It's been a minute.
It was a long time. I don't even know. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, and I would even say for you, because you even witnessed when I had my photography business, because I talk about my story all the time, but I had my photography business and was pretty much on the verge of leaving at one point in time, my corporate job. Then I backed out of it, right? And all these conversations, and I remember at the time, you ended up leaving your corporate role, right, to go into something that you have today, a powerful organization that you have today. So, Starr, if you don't mind, just starting out, telling us a little bit more about yourself, in terms of family, where you're from, just a little bit more about you.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me be on your amazing platform. So many times, I think that we have been taught to pit ourselves against one another, and I'm here for all of us winning, right? We are all beautiful, we are all intelligent, and we are all going to shine. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. As Robin said, my name is Starr Davis. I am from Louisville, Kentucky, born and raised. Went to school at Florida State for college, moved to Atlanta, which is how Robin and I met, was there for about 14 years. And then my family and I relocated to Miami during the height of the pandemic. It's full circle. And I think we'll get into this more, but I just have to start out and saying it's like, keep going, right? Every experience that you have, every person that you meet, all of those things end up working together for your good. And it may not feel like it at the time that you're going through it, but everything has come full circle. So I attended Florida State, received my degree in mass communication, went there with the thought of being a broadcast journalist. Wanting to be, I wanted to be on TV. I'm just being honest. That's what I want. The funny thing is, I don't like to see myself on camera.
Wow.
But I wanted to be on TV, right? Moved to Atlanta, you need a job. Started working for a law firm, hated every second of it. The first law firm that I worked at, it was family law. And it's like, we're fighting over pots and pans. You don't want to let this man see his kids. It was crazy to me. It was bizarre. And then I started working for a criminal defense attorney. And I sat a rape, child molestation, a double homicide, and a murder trial. And I was like, oh, I can do this. Never grew up. I mean, my extent of the law growing up was Claire Huxtable. I just thought she was bad. You know what I'm saying? She was fierce. But it was never like, oh, I want to be an attorney when I grow up. That was never the case. And then I did it. I just was like, I'm going to law school. And then I'm going to be a public defender because I want to help people who come from where I come from, and to be a voice for people who don't have a voice. So I went to school in North Carolina Central, and came back to Atlanta and worked at the public defender's office in Fulton County for a little over 5 years before I left. And what I found out at the PD's office is that I was able to serve the community that I'm serving now with the Starr Institute. But it gave me a unique lens because now I had my personal experience as a survivor of child sexual abuse. Now I had the professional experience having represented adults and minors who are victims of of sexual abuse, molestation, assault, rape, all of the things, right?
Yeah.
And just being able to see how it all works together.
Yeah.
And you would think like, oh my God. So, because a lot of people are like, oh my God, you don't practice law traditionally anymore with all the student loans. And I'm like, but my communications degree, my law degree, all of those things come together to allow me to do what it is that I do with the Starr Institute. So I just don't want it to be lost on anyone. It's like, what am I doing? Why did I waste that time? No, you have to think about it. It's your, I don't want to say like your lying in wait time, but it's your preparation. You have to be prepared for these things that you're going to do, and you need all of those skills. So that's really how I got started in this whole thing.
Girl, but what you say in terms of it being full circle, right? Like a lot of times we often disregard, or we don't really give credit to some of the small decisions that we make in life, right? Like little things that we make along the way. It's never a mistake, right? Like it's always something that you can learn, and you can always take that experience on to doing something that you want to do. So I want to go back. I just want to kind of let's kind of go back, because you actually took us through a lot of what I wanted to cover, but I want to hear a little bit more details about your story, especially so you talked about like your greatest influence was around like Claire Huxtable, right? Like how many of us, like we had this image of seeing a Black woman, a Black family, right? Like you got a lawyer and a doctor, as parents basically, and they have a household of, 3 kids. They're off pretty well, right? Financially, like they're doing pretty good for themselves. And you decided that you wanted to do something similar for your life as well after kind of going through that experience. Was this undergrad for you? College for you? Or high school for you, when you actually, before you decided you were going to go to law school? At what point was that, where you said you were working?
That was after I had graduated from college, moved to Atlanta, and needed a job. So it's like, you don't know that you're not going to get a job in your field, right? So I had a mass communications degree, and it was actually like a boyfriend that I had in college. He was an ex, and his sister-in-law had a law firm, and she needed a legal assistant, and I needed a job.
Wow. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy the way that works, because it's like, I need a job. I paid all the money in student debt, right? Like I paid all these bills for college and all that stuff, right? I just need a job. Let me figure this out. And so you're not realizing that this was going to lead you on to a path of going to law school. And so
absolutely.
And so
because the 18-year-old Starr said, I'm going to graduate high school. I'm going to go to Florida State. Florida State was the only school that I applied to. I found out that they had a first generational college student program. It was called CARE. And so that's how I got admitted into Florida State. And this is how tough I rock with God. I was like, listen, you got to get me in this school. I did not apply to any other school. It was the only school. I never had backup plans. I know that probably sounds crazy, but I don't, because at a very young age, I learned that I could only depend on God. So it's always been my policy that I do my part, he does the rest, and I leave space for him to remix it. So 18-year-old Starr says, listen, I am going to go to Florida State, and I'm going to graduate, and I'm going to move to Atlanta. That's where Black people prosper.
Okay. Yes.
And that's what I did. And so I ended up graduating early from Florida State. I graduated December 17th, 2005.
Okay.
Went home to Louisville for 2 weeks, went for Christmas, called up my cousin and his wife, who lived in Atlanta, and was like, and they have a son that is my age. And so I was like, hey, I just graduated. I don't have a job, but I will get a job. Can I move in with y'all? And they said yes. And January 1, 2006, I was living in Atlanta. And so the way I was brought up, my mom, my grandmother, my dad, it was like, I come from a family of workers. So you're going to work. I'm like, these people are not going to get up every day and go to work. And I'm just laying around in their house because I'm looking for a communications job. So when I got that opportunity to get, like, within 2 weeks, I was working.
That was God. That was definitely God.
That was God. But I'll say this too. It was God, but it's also doing your part, because sometimes we get hung up on, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to listen. My first job out of college, I was making $8 an hour.
Yep.
$8 an hour. And some people will turn their nose up to that $8, or, whatever, people got a whole lot of things that they go through. What I'm thankful for is I had a safe place, a clean, beautiful place to live. People who weren't charging me any rent. And I was going to do my part, if I'm trying. And I think that sometimes people get hung up in that, like what you want to do and what's beneath you.
Yep.
Like, you're trying to get a start, get your start. And the rest of it will keep coming on the way. But you got to do the work, right? Because faith without works is dead. So in order to activate, you got to move.
I agree. And I say that all the time, because I'm like, a lot of people, and see, I kind of go back to, childhood of, we were strong in our faith, right? Like, really strong in our faith. And what I found was some people really abuse that term of when they say, oh, God will do it. That's God. Let God do it. Let God lead the way, right? A lot of times people looked at it as if it means God is going to, I don't know, magically come out of the sky and literally pick you up and walk you to that to that job and ask for, or to that employer and ask for a job, right? Or that he's going to pick you up and walk you to that boss and ask for a raise, right? Like, and it does not work like that, right?
It does not.
I'm so glad that people, and I think a lot of us now, especially in our generation, like, we know, like, although I'm thankful that I have a strong background, I have a strong faith, right? Like, I know that I can always depend on God for whatever it is I need. But we know now that scripture where it talks about faith without works is dead. It's true. Like, it is true. Like, you really have to listen to that, because it's a lot of things that we say we want, right? A lot of us as women, a lot of us as mothers. And I say this because for us specifically as being moms, especially, right? Like, we have all these competing priorities, right? And it's a lot of things that we have to juggle on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, we're juggling schedules, we're juggling, especially when the kids get in school, we're juggling the kids' activities, sports, and all the stuff that they got to do at the school, right? Projects, all kind of things that we're juggling. And we know deep down, for a lot of us, there are things that we really want to pursue. We know that there are things, there's a gift inside of us, there's a calling inside of us. And we pray and we hope, right? that there'll be an opportunity for us to get there. But what I've learned kind of along this way, along this journey, has been that, oftentimes, even if I don't have a way, or even if I don't necessarily know how, once you start looking and once you really start taking the time to seek that information, you'll start getting the clarity that you need along the way, right? Like, it doesn't mean you got to have everything laid out. You don't have to have a whole plan. And a lot of us, we grew up, right? Like, feeling as if we got to have everything together, right? Going into the corporate world, we got to have everything checked off the box before we tell people that we're pursuing certain things, right? And so I talk about this all the time, because I'm like, that is a limiting belief. That's a limiting belief. It's keeping us, it's holding us back. It's holding us back from being able to really accomplish the things that we know we should be doing. So I'm curious, Starr, if you can kind of talk about, so you kind of walked us on a journey where you were in undergrad, you graduated, you ended up getting this role, right? It wasn't necessarily a role that you were expecting, right? At the time when you graduated, and leading up, and now while you're in the role, now you've experienced, I guess, your ability to be able to connect with people more so in your community, like the type of people that you wanted to serve, right? Could you talk a little bit more about that? I know you talked about a little bit more of your background, but just share with the group, like, what were some of those things that kind of prompted you to say, oh, I need to go into law school? What were some of the things that you were seeing that got you to do that? And where do you feel like your skills, like your knowledge, your experience, where do you feel like it kind of fell into that equation?
Okay, so Ooh, that's like kind of like a loaded question. But I'll say this. When I was working for my good friend Melanie, that's the first attorney that I was working for, even though I did not care for family law. That was her major that's her bread and butter area of law. But I learned systems. I learned how to run an effective business with Melanie. I learned how you structured, how you approached clients. Mel is the bomb. Okay, when I tell you, like, no joke. So I learned what it looked like to be a boss. And she was a wife and she was a mom and she was doing this thing, right?
Okay.
So I learned that from her. I learned how to be a professional, how you appeared in court, how you have to approach and finesse different situations, different courtrooms, different case managers. I learned how to play the game, even though it wasn't a game that I necessarily wanted to be in. And I learned how to do it effectively and efficiently. And to know how, when, it's one of those things, because people don't think about it. Like, you think about doctors and people are always thinking, oh, you go to a doctor and it's a life or death situation. Well, when somebody's coming to an attorney, it is too. Now, sometimes it's not always about your physical life and death, but it might be your freedom, which could be life and death. It could be your affairs. You know what I'm saying? And so people don't think about it like that. And so when you come to an attorney, a lot of times people are scared and they don't know a lot of things. And so you have to have, just like a doctor, you should have a certain bedside manner. So I was able to like learn all of that from Melanie and be fly doing it, right? Because my girl is fly, right? So I was able to learn that from her. So then when I started working for the next attorney, Butterfield, when I sat for that, I sat 3 full trials with him: a rape, child molestation, a double homicide, and a murder trial. And it just and he's phenomenal. He's amazing. So I was seeing trial in action. Like, I was seeing Matlock before my very eyes. Black man doing the thing, right? And although he was a private attorney at that time, he had also started out at the public defender's office. And so I was like, wow, I can do this. I'd always been a talker. Naturally, all my life. I'm the youngest, but I have a big brother. I'm always like the big little sister. When I'm leaving, I get the house key. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've always been, I'm going to be the teacher when we play. Okay. Like, I'm very type A. I'm very that person. And so in seeing that, I was like, man, like, I need to be able to speak up for people, right? Because I would tell people all the time, as a criminal defense attorney, my hardest job is humanizing my client, right? People think, right? Jurors will tell you, well, if they're sitting next to you, they had to have done something wrong.
They just assume.
They're saying, if it's gotten this far, then they've done something. They might not have done all of it, but they've done something. And just being able to give people, a fair shake. And so I was like, by that time, I had already been working like in a law firm for 2 years. It was supposed to be a 2-week assignment. It was supposed to be a 2-week assignment. And I had worked there for 2 years. So I was like, quite naturally, I was like, I can do this. I can do this. And when I do it, I'm going to be a public defender. So that's really how the transition happened. It was, and for me, I would say that it was natural because I'd always been a talker. I'd always been a reader. I love helping people, because of the things that I experienced growing up. I never judged people. Like, I'm like, if you knew what was going on in my house, there's no room for you to be judging somebody else, right? So to be able to sit with my client, like when I would go visit my clients at the jail, I did not go. If they made me, like if they had stuff going on the floor and I would have to go talk to them, through the glass and on the phone, but I don't have time for that. I don't want to talk to them. I want to sit at the table and talk to them.
Yeah.
They are a real person. You know
That's
what
right.
I'm saying? They have real feelings. And what's unfortunate is that oftentimes me sitting here talking to a person charged with a criminal offense is the first time that someone what listens to them, actually listens to them. Someone who does what? Holds them accountable, right? Because I'm like, hey, they're looking at me, some of them, like, you're just a public defender. I know you get a bonus for every plea that you take. I know that you work, you're a public pretender. Like, I got to go through all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, I'm not judging you for sitting here. You don't know me. I don't know you. Let's get to know one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you take me on a case by case basis, just like I'm taking you, right? And so I think for me, I'm always bringing God into any space that I'm in. I ask him to go before me. And so I think that, one of the best things, one of the best feelings as an attorney, and what I tell people all the time, I do not miss practicing law. I much rather how I connected to my clients and how I was able to help them. Now, sometimes that's actually obviously through a trial, but sometimes it's connecting them up with their families. Sometimes it is, helping them to get to the next level. Maybe it's to get a job, or maybe it's to get into school, or maybe it's to get into a parenting class. Like, it was those things. But my very, very first trial, Jermichael, and all he would tell me at first was not guilty. I'm pleading not guilty. I'm going to trial. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, sir. You got to talk to me about the case.
Mm-hmm.
Not guilty. He ain't had nothing to say to me. Okay. He mad at the world. He mad at everybody. So obviously I'm trying to right. So I'm trying to do a motion for him. I need you to talk to me so that I can be prepared. Not guilty. Right. Anyway, I'm still gonna do what I'm supposed to do. Do the motion, lose the motion, right? Which is not, it's not common. You know what I'm saying? But that made him start talking to me, because that was him saying, okay, so she is going to fight for me. Yeah. She is going to fight for me. She is listening to what I'm saying, right? Yeah. And, when, I'm dressed to the nine, so I make sure my clients are dressed to the nine. Like, we have a closed closet, but I would be asking my attorney friends, like, you got some old suits? And sometimes I have to go get them some stuff because he needs to be fly, because everybody is looking at him and they're looking at her. And you know what his mom said? She was like, where did he get those clothes from? He looks so nice. I've never seen him wear a suit before. I was like, oh, I got those clothes for him. I had an order written so that he could get his hair cut. I bought him some chapstick and a brush, because I'm gonna tell you what, we together. Yeah, we a package deal. And so for me, it's always been about being able to just see the humanity in people and understand that sometimes the circumstances and situations that they are up against are really hard, and sometimes it's beyond their control. But you don't have to just turn a blind eye to them or look down at them. And so I'm so very grateful and thankful for what I learned about myself, about what I learned about the system, about what I learned about how the system treats everybody, but specifically us. And it also gave me instant credibility when I transitioned into the nonprofit space, because people already knew me. I don't play. I tell the truth. I'm going to be prepared. And you better have your stuff together, because I'm going to have my stuff together.
That's right. Full circle. So let me ask you this. At what point did you decide that, okay, I'm taking all these skills, this experience that I have with me, right? At what point did you decide that you were actually going to start your nonprofit and actually leave just your role as a public defender?
So what happened for me was, as I said earlier, I am a survivor of child sexual abuse. So having experienced that, not telling anyone but my best friend, who was also a child, about the abuse. When I told her, I made a promise to her and to myself that when we got older, I would help kids like me. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of, said that. I meant it, but I didn't know. I mean, I was a kid, I was like 12 years old. I didn't
Yes.
know where that was going, right?
Yeah. Right.
And again, full circle. And so for the time that I was at the PD's office, for the bulk of the time, I worked in Superior Court. So I was representing adults. As we've already talked about, I have 2 kids, David and Parker. And so after I had Parker, it was like, I can't be trying murder, rape, and robbery with a 2-year-old and a
Girl,
newborn.
trying to carry that. Woo.
So then I went down to juvenile court and was representing kids that were charged with criminal offenses. And I never wanted to be down there. I never wanted to be down there because I knew I would be triggered. And sure enough, I was. Like, I literally, the first couple of weeks walking in the court, I'm crying because now I'm looking at this from a different lens, right? One, I'm like, listen, this could have easily been me when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
2, I'm a mom now. So I'm like, somebody is supposed to take care of this baby and teach them how to be a productive citizen and provide for them and love on them, right? And so I had a client and she was 15. And I was going over the police report with her. And I was like, okay, baby, so, tell me, how do you know this man in the police report? And she was like, I know him from when I used to sell pee.
Uh-huh.
And she said it just like the sky was blue. And I said, you know what?
At 15.
I was like, you know what? Like me, her grandmother had raised her. Her parents weren't in the picture. And she was just doing the best that she could. And I was like, you know what? It's time for me to go. So I was like, there's never going to be a great time to just like pick up and go, right? And I wasn't wedded, like I said, I wasn't wedded to practicing law. It wasn't like my lifelong dream was to grow up and be an attorney. So I talked to my husband and I was like, hey, can I leave this job? I think I need to leave this job because for me, I've always been an all-in type of person. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. So I wasn't going to be able to practice law and build like I wanted to be able to because I needed to go to all of these trainings. I needed to find out how to get into this space. And that just wasn't going to give me the ability to be able to do that. So I left my job 5 years ago, February 7th, 2017. And I've been out here with the Starr Institute full-time, ever since. Now, I will say that in that initial transitional period, I would like cover court for some of my friends. Like I would do things like that. Once I started speaking and things like that, I would get speaking engagements and different things like that. But it was a straight up faith walk. And now I will say that I am married. And so that is a difference because there is another income in my household. But I would just say, figure out how to do it is best for you. I took my 401k and I was like, well, that's my salary for the year. I let, you know what I'm saying?
But I do want to, I kind of want to circle back on a point you made. You talked about where, basically you saw that there were parts of this role, right? Like that were triggering for you, right? And you were just like, I got my youngest child here. This is a trigger for me. I don't think this is something that I want to continue to do. And the reason why I bring this up is because it's a lot of us where I believe that when we have those moments, right, where we're either triggered or it's something there where, you feel like you're kind of hitting this block, right? Like this roadblock. And you feel as if like it's just not in alignment, right? And so like what I hear you say is that basically that was a moment for you where you were just not in alignment with what you were really wanting to do. Although you felt that you were connected to some kind of purpose in that moment, right? Like your skill, there were a lot of things that you were doing that, again, you built a lot of your skill sets around just working in the business, right? Like you learned how to run a business, the systems, all that stuff, right? You learn how to get up and speak in front of people, right? How to be confident, how to show up, how to support people, how to connect with people, like all of these skills that you learned along the way. Where, and for a lot of people, and I'm going to say me, I'll kind of just speak for myself right now, but a lot of us, we hold on to certain jobs and certain careers because of the fact that we put all that time, right, into a job. We've gotten all this experience, we've gotten all this credibility, right, throughout this career. And we know that there's a point for us, right, where it's like it's just trigger, or it's just not in alignment with the things that we know that we really want to do, right? Like we know it's just like there's a disconnect somewhere, but we continue to push through that. And I say that because again, a lot of the women here, I really want to push on the fact that even if that doesn't mean for us like leaving your job, right? Like we're not encouraging you to necessarily leave your job, but what I'm saying, what I hear you say is basically pay attention to those moments, right? Like where although we have all these things, we're like, oh, I got all this credibility, I got these promotions, they're giving me more and more money, right? Like they're giving me all this money, but you know that there are certain moments throughout the stage of that career where it's like it's just not in alignment, right? Like it's taking me away from my family, it's taking me away from my kids, it's causing more emotional strain on me than I'm able to really be fruitful in this role, right? Like at some point, we have to know, we have to pay attention to that and listen to that, because I do believe a lot of times that's more of the spirit, right? That's our inner spirit telling us that it's time for us to pivot. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a failure, right? Like, but oftentimes, if you listen to that, oftentimes that's what's leading us into the place that we need to be, right? And so fast forward, you listen, like you listen. You didn't try to force it. You didn't say, oh, I got this attorney, this lawyer salary. I'm gonna ride it out.
Now, wait a minute. I was a public defender now.
I'm sorry, a public defender, but
but so I'm saying this is big salary. It wasn't a big salary.
Okay, no, fair enough. But the potential, let's talk about the potential that it could take, right? Like the schooling, all these years, like everything that you went through, right? Like, and I say that because again, I think about my scenario, because even when I left my career, like I had a 16-year career making six figures, right? Like it was very easy to be like, man, like I need to just go ahead and ride this thing out, right? Versus knowing when to shift, right? Knowing when to make that pivot. And I say that because it's important that we listen to when that pivot. Like a lot of times it's like there are signs, there are different things that are showing up to tell us like, hey, you need to pivot. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to completely stop what you're doing. Like you say, even during that transition, what did you do? You were still working at times, just to kind of help cover certain things. You were covering to help other colleagues and things of that nature. At what point for you, and you kind of shared this because you shared the reason why you left and why you went into, your Starr Institute. But at what point was it where you felt like you were comfortable without having to necessarily go back to that place? Like, what were some of the measures that you put in place? And I know you say you don't plan a lot, right? But there had to have been something, right, along that journey for you to be like, I know that I had X, Y, Z in place, right? Like as moms, right? There were things that we were thinking about. So what were some of those things that maybe you were thinking about or you were planning for as you transitioned out?
Honestly, I did not.
Wow.
I'm telling you no lies. I did not.
Girl.
I did not.
Girl. And sometimes that matters too. Because sometimes
I honestly, I did it. I'm always like, well, I trust you, God. Let me tell you something. My 18-year-old, my senior quote in high school, was, I know God never puts more on you than you can bear. I just wish he wouldn't trust me so much. That was my quote as a senior in high school. And so I'm telling you, the way my faith is set up, Robin, and I'm telling you, I am saying this because I'm being all the way transparent. I was like, maybe the Lord knew I needed to be natural, right? Because I wasn't going to be able to get my hair done, because I used to get my hair done every week, baby. But I was natural, right? It was like, okay, I'm not getting my nails done anymore. It was like I made conscious decisions to be able to make sacrifices, right? And then God just met the need. Now I'm grateful that we never lived above our means. We've never been those type of people, right? And I'm not gonna lie and be like, whoosh, it ain't been tight at times, but I will say we ain't never got anything repossessed or anything ever cut off, or it's never been that type of thing. And so what I will say to people is that if you're gonna trust him, you trust him all the way, right? And if you are in a position where someone is like you and they do have six figures and they do have more, like you can start saving up for a rainy. My husband and I both, I would say we were both humble public defenders. I mean, humble public servants. I was a public defender. He was a police officer with DeKalb County. So we're not trust fund babies, right? We are the other kind of trust fund. Trust him. That's about all the trust fund I got for you, right? So I would say that, you have to use wisdom. And but you got to have that relationship with God. I had that relationship. And like I said, I'm always that one. And I joke and I be like, well, he don't want no egg on his face. Cause I brag on God all the time. But I'm clear on that. I'm clear on what everything that I have accomplished is because of him. I am just a vessel. I could have done none of this without him. So I always acknowledge him. And in that, in return, he blesses me and he keeps me, right? That doesn't mean that things that I'm without disappointments or setbacks, or I'm like, gosh, man, what's going on? Hello, me. These are your kids. This is your husband. This is the dreams you put inside of me. Now I have those type of conversations with him, right? But obedience is better than sacrifice. And
girl, you better say that.
So I think that you have to know what your relationship is. So if God says wait, you should wait. If God says go, you should go. If he says no, sometimes that means not right now. You know what I'm saying? If he tells you to connect with this person, connect with this person. If he starts telling you to write a journal entry once every night, write a journal entry once every night. Just do what he tells you to do. And then I am just living proof that when you do your part, he does the rest. And I promise you, that's how I am going into my 6th year. We will, in February 7th, it'll be 6 years.
Girl, that is amazing. That is amazing. So, because I do want you to talk more about the Starr Institute, because it's a fabulous organization. I kind of want to hear from you, like, even before going into Starr Institute, right? Like you made that transition. All right. What were some of like the mindset, like the obstacles, like what were some of those challenges that you faced, right? Because you kind of talked about the financial side, right? But even from, I know some of us, like we get a lot of, we have a lot of opinions, right? Especially for our generation, right? You go through college, the expectation is we go through college, we get this degree, we work this job. Like, what was that like for you? I would even say from family members, from friends, like what was that response and kind of how were you able to kind of manage to, or even if it wasn't family and friends, maybe if it was something that maybe you were just dealing with internally, like were you blessing yourself, self-doubt, like what was that like for you?
Well, I lost my grandma in 2020. And she was my person. I have her tattooed. My angel Maxine, she was my angel before she became my actual angel, but I would talk to her. And I would be like, oh my gosh, grandma, did I make a mistake? Like, am I crazy? Like, what's going on? And she would be like, no, baby. She was like, you just got to keep trusting.
And about your grandma too.
And she, because I would think that I'm like, am I crazy? Like we got 2 small kids, right? We got 2 small kids. And we have this one salary, and watch what you say, right? Because I'm all about speaking life and death. And I know we talked about finances, but I would always say like all the time, like we need both of our incomes to be able to make this thing work. Maybe took that thing right away. And so I think that for me, I remember when I first started going into the space. So I went to this training. I found out about this training of one of the like premier organizations in Atlanta, and my mom and I went. And I ended up meeting a really good, I call her a friend to her. Her name is Margie. She had been in this space for over 20 years. I mean, bomb. She introduced me to Charnel and Melba, and they both have been in this space for over 20 years. Powerhouse, beautiful Black women doing it, and they just embraced me because I'm a teachable person. I'm gonna always learn.
Yep.
I don't have to be a chief
to know it all.
I can learn. Sometimes, we need to lead, and sometimes we need to follow. Yep. And so when I would learn from them and they would tell me, and I mean, they welcomed me with open arms, and just like to, again, full circle, this May of this year, Melba and I presented at a conference together in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes.
How full circle is that, right? And so I think that at first I was like, I don't know how to run a business. I'm trying to learn how to run a nonprofit. But again, to where you talked about, okay, people pouring into you, people knew what I was doing. So people were supporting me. They knew me. People have to know you. Yeah. If you have a vision, it doesn't matter if you don't have money. If people believe in you, they will believe in your vision. So one of my really good friends, Neff, when it came time, that's how she poured into the Starr Institute. She did my 501c3 filing for me. Now she was like, don't you want to, learn? No, I don't want to learn how to do it. I know I'm an attorney. I just want you to do it for me, right? One of my line sister's brother, who is my brother from another mother, Joel, like he designed my logo. Like people were doing this, my rack card, my business card. Like people were my brother did my first website. Like people will get behind you. You know what I'm saying? And so every time I felt like, wow, like, can I do this? I just kept doing the work. And he kept gracing. Every time I wanted to do something, he would be like, okay, I'm gonna send you this resource. I'm gonna send you this person. And that is kind of how this all works together, right? And till one day I was like, look, it's people got less experience than me. What you talking about? Now, I've been speaking for over 16 years professionally. Like, what are you saying? You know what I'm saying? And then I had to step back because I think we get inside of our heads and we think, oh, it's only in this box. I've been doing this. But in the confines of you doing this, that means you know how to do this and this and this and this. So we can't box ourselves in. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not going to be thinking that I'm not supposed to be here, because as long as I continue to learn, as long as I continue to be humble, as long as God say I'm supposed to be here, and I'm supposed to be here. So I don't care if you think I'm not supposed to be here, because I'm supposed to be here. I'm here.
Girl, I love that. Look, and it's funny, Starr, because since I've known you, you've kept, y'all, and I'm going to say this for anybody's watching, I noticed about Starr, and what she's saying is 100% right, because she's always been true to like knowing like she's where she needs to be, right? Like you've always been very confident in that. I don't care what's going on. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? Like sometimes that's what it takes. But I'm going to call out the 3 things that I heard you say. You mentioned you were coachable, basically teachable, right?
Gotta be teachable,
right? You got to be teachable. You can't just jump into something. And the reason why I bring up this point is because, again, some of us, when we're working in these corporate roles, a lot of times it's like we have to kind of be on point, right? Like we got to be, especially when you're getting paid higher, you're in leadership roles, like you got to be that person. And I remember, girl, when I got in entrepreneurship, that humbled me so quick. Like when I take entrepreneurship humbled me so quick, because it was one of those things where I was like, if I try to jump in here as a know-it-all, acting like I got all the facts and I know exactly how to run this, versus the second point you brought up was actually depending on other people, right? Mm-hmm. Like not trying to take on, trying to build your website. Oh, I got it. You know how some people—
That's not my ministry. Not my ministry.
Come on now. So you hired, or not even hired. You used the resources that you had, right? You used the resources that you had to get your logo done, to get your 501c3 created, to get your website done, all of these resources, right? And you weren't, and you humbled yourself, right? And I say a lot of us, it does take a humbling process, but you didn't try to do it alone. That's the third point I want to make. You did not try to do it alone. And that is commendable, because again, sometimes we feel as if just because we're starting a business that we have to get out here and do it alone, but we feel like, oh, well, I don't have enough money or resources to hire somebody, right? I don't have enough money to get my website done. I don't have enough money to get my logo right. And a lot of times what you'll find is that, like you say, when you let people know about your vision and you're true to that vision and you're in alignment with that vision, oftentimes people are going to roll with you. Your people, right? They're going to support you. They're going to support whatever it is you got going on. And oftentimes what you'll find is that it just takes a matter of opening up your mouth and asking, right? Like letting people know, like, hey.
I'm always ask. That's my thing. I'm always ask. You can say no, but people
You
don't
your resources.
People tell me no all the time, but I'm like,
and that's okay. But that's what it's all about. But girl, when I tell you, I love you for that, because like I say, I've always just seen you. It didn't matter what was happening. I guess that's another gem you drop, right? It don't matter what's going on, but to keep going, right? Like things are going to happen. Obstacles are going to happen. You may question along the way, right? You may, I don't know if, grandma, do you think this is something I should be doing? All right, well, I'm going to keep going anyway, right? I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to acknowledge that I have these feelings, but I'm going to keep moving anyway. And that's what it takes. Like,
and I give myself, I have this thing where I say I give myself a time limit to be in my feelings.
Yes.
So depending on what it is, right? Because you're going to mess up. Yep. You're going to mess up.
Yes.
Everybody messes up.
Yep.
Do you think that any of these, mogul, multimillionaire, billionaire people, they didn't know what they were doing? They were getting started in garages like the rest of us or wherever, And that's so right. I think that we just have to get out of our own way, right? It's like Nike really does have it. Just do it.
Just do it. Get out your way. Get out the way. Because oftentimes it's us. So let's kind of go into the Starr Institute. I want you to talk about Starr Institute. Tell us more about this, like I say, this fabulous organization, and kind of, just so people can get more familiar with the business and why you're so passionate about it. Right.
So 501c3 nonprofit. We educate, engage, and empower youth in the community about child sexual abuse and exploitation. So we offer our age demographic as far as youth are concerned is 12 to 17, boys and girls. And we're really trying to shift this narrative around this conversation of child sexual abuse, because what I want people to understand is that it's preventable, right? And we have to talk about body autonomy, and we have to talk about adverse childhood experiences, and we have to talk about setting boundaries and healthy relationships. And kids need to know that from a very young age, and using the correct anatomical terms for body parts and not being shamed for that, right? And so I actually last year, what was it? Oh gosh, I'm coming up on my little anniversary. So December 2021, I became a published author. This is my book called The Abuse Algorithm, Lessons in Protecting Children from Sexual Abuse. This is my book I used to teach with, so that's why I have the tabs. But it essentially talks about how child sexual abuse is a public health crisis, right? But again, it's something that we can prevent. And more often than not, kids are abused by someone they know, love, and trust, right? And that's the people who have access to them. So what we have to do as a community is shift the narrative about how we approach this situation. And what I'm finding out is that sometimes people feel like they need permission to be able to talk about this. Every time I've spoken, someone has always disclosed to me, people have been holding things in for such a long time, and you don't have to do that, right? And so that is what I am working to do. And we all need it. I'm actually working on creating a curriculum. So we have a workshop series called My Safety Starts With Me. And this is for the youth. And so it starts out with sex trafficking awareness and safety 101. Then there is internet safety, goal setting, self-esteem, and goal setting. And the reason we start out with those is because I want people to understand that when someone abuses a child, they are exploiting a vulnerability. Now, sometimes that is something that's very tangible, like they need food, clothing, water, shelter, right? Sometimes, though, it is lack of attention or lack of being seen or not feeling loved. And so for me, it is being that trusted adult. Again, another full circle moment. Growing up, my grandmother was my person. And for me as a kid, I just felt like, well, you just need one person, right?
Yeah.
Now I found out there's a whole Harvard study that says this. Like what's the difference in making a kid be resilient is at least having one trusted adult. So I'm trying to build an army of trusted adults. And I tell parents all the time, well, sometimes you're not your child's trusted adult. And that's okay. Do not be in your feelings about that.
Yeah.
Make sure they have a person who they have identified that they can love and trust and who they can speak to freely and they feel comfortable confiding in them about situations that come up in their lives. And so the sex trafficking awareness and safety, we have a version of that for adults and professionals. We also do it for the internet safety because what I tell people all the time is, this internet is a gift and a curse. Now you can go on there and you can learn how to build a bomb, make a baby, or bake a cake. And kids need to learn from us. And if we don't teach them, they're going to learn from their friends or from the internet, and it's just not gonna be right? And so we have to create these safe spaces for our kids. And really, we have to, I want them to grow up and I want them to be leaders and I want to empower them to have control over their bodies. And that starts with us. So, people look at me like a crazy when I'm saying, like, we ask our kids, like, can I give you a hug? Can I give you a kiss? And if they say no, that's a no.
That's a no. That's a no.
That's
don't be
not
trying to force no hug.
It's not that. They don't have to give you a high five, a fist bump, a pow pow. They don't have to do any of that, right? And we have to learn to respect kids. They're little people. That's it. They're the small people who have boundaries that need to be respected. And so that's what we're all about at the Starr Institute, shifting that narrative around and in the process of it, making sure we are protecting our kids and that we are preventing child sexual abuse and exploitation. And then should it occur, how does this work? How do we do this?
I have a question for you, and feel free if you don't want to answer this, it's fine. But first, let me say thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you for what you do, because there's definitely a need for it, especially, any of us, like with young kids, like it's a need. And there are still gaps there, right? And so I'm so grateful that you have taken on this, this journey to be able to share your experiences, but also you're tapping into your power and you being able to tap into your power, those things that are important to you, those things where, you're able to offer value for people. You're able to help like hundreds and thousands of people, right? Like, and so I'm so grateful for you. But I want to ask this question because, again, with this being a community of mompreneurs, is there any research or in terms of your knowledge that kind of ties back in the presence of like just moms in particular, like actually being present in the homes? And this is the reason why I asked that question. This is the reason why I asked the question, because one of the reasons why I made the decision to leave my corporate career, right? And I'm still working even beyond that, like still having jobs after I left my career. But one of the reasons why I was like, okay, I'm not in alignment was because, kind of going back to your story about like with Parker, right? Like when Parker was here, you were still working in this public defender world and you were just like, I don't know if this is really in alignment, right? And like, that's how I felt. I felt like I'm doing all of this stuff, right? But I didn't feel like it was in alignment because I felt like by the time I had my youngest, it just felt as if it was like this disconnect. Like the more money, and I'm going to say I'm not even going to say the more money, because it really wasn't the more money. It was me. It was really me. But as I started taking on new roles, I felt like I had to work harder, right? So I would say it wasn't necessarily, it had nothing to do with the money. It was a mindset thing for me. And so I found myself working harder, working longer hours, out doing this stuff. And so I was like, I'm not in alignment with what it is that I say that I want, because I value being at home with my kids. Is there any link between that? Like, I know we're kind of going away from it, but this is something that I'm super passionate about, especially with moms being not only in the home, but more present in the home.
So I haven't come across a study that says that directly, but there are so many things out there that just talk about just being present, right? And it is not really about the quantity as opposed to the quality, right?
Yes.
And so I'll give you this example. Like, I don't know, we probably started this about a month ago. Me and my husband, like, when he comes in, because he works a lot, I work, because I work from home, it's kind of sporadic. Like, my day chopped up between taking the kids to and from, all the things. And so when he comes in now from work, it could be any whatever, but typically about 6 to 6:30, right? We're gonna put the phones down, and we just gonna be with the kids for that time until it's time for them to go to bed. They go to bed at 8:30. So no phones. They're not on any consoles or anything like that. We might just be watching a movie. We watch Jeopardy in this family. Okay, and
I love it.
Eat dinner and just chill out. Right? Yeah. We might read a book. We might, whatever it is. It's just us being present. So I haven't come across, one that, puts the mother over the father, but I know it is just it is the quality of it. Putting down the phone, putting down whatever, making eye contact, because that sends to them. I think you have to remember, especially when we have young kids, they're very literal. They're very literal. So if you are, on your phone, they're thinking, well, what I'm saying is not important. You know what I'm saying? Or you're not really listening to me. And so
I would tell me, Mommy, no electronics. Can you put your phone down? Girl, Mom would tell me so quick. Like, okay, I'm glad they know that. I'm glad that they acknowledge that.
They do. And it is. And so we just have to, I mean, it's just all of us. I mean, and I don't have it together. Some days I'm doing better than other days. Some days I fail, but I'll try to do this. Like, okay, you want to talk to me? Give me 15 minutes. Let me finish this up. Let me wrap this up. They're very good about knowing, that I'm on a call or I have something that I need to do, and it's just honoring that. So if you say, give me 15 minutes. Okay, in 15 minutes, you need to come off of whatever it is that you were doing.
Right.
Okay, I got 45 minutes for us to do X, Y, Z. Right. But just being able to have that level of communication, because my kids tell me all the time, like, Mommy, I wish you didn't have to work so much. And it's because they can see me, right? Yes. They can see me. It's different for Daddy because he goes away. He's not bringing work home. It's not the same thing, but they can see me. Right. And so, and sometimes my hours are not typical hours, right? Because you're an entrepreneur, so you got to do what you got to do when you got to do it. So it's just just making sure it's the quality versus quantity, and then structure. So if you can do something that's like something that they can look forward to, like on this day we do this, or every day this time we do that, right? I think, and that helps us too, right? Because you want to be present. Right. But then you also have to give yourself some grace. You have to give yourself some grace, and you have to give other people grace.
I got to do better with that, but I'm so glad you shared that, because I feel like I used to have a routine like that where I was like, okay, on certain days we would do certain things, and I feel like I got away from it. But I will say that if nothing else, we sit down at that dinner table, we are talking. Like, there are no electronics, there are no phones, there's no TV. Like, we don't even have the TV going. Like, we are sitting down, we're having a conversation about what happened today. How did you feel? We're talking through all that. If nothing else, But I do like the idea of maybe scheduling something kind of like, just like a routine on certain days. They have something to look forward to, like Fridays for us.
Yeah, and like how you have your dinner, we have our devotional. So I mean,
Oh,
I
I
missed the
love that
devotional
too.
tonight,
Girl,
but
I love that.
we do that every night. They have a little
Yeah.
Veggie Tales book. We read it. They have a little thought for the day.
Ooh.
Pray. They do their little handshake with their daddy. Their mama's not cool. I don't have one,
We
but
don't
they
have
do.
one, girl.
They do well with their daddy,
I
and
like that
that is
though.
something that they know that it's gonna. So it can be whatever, it can
Yeah,
be whatever it is. But
I love
it is important to establish those things because again, these kids are just up against so much stuff. When I tell these kids when I'm talking to them, and I'm like, well, because the internet wasn't really around when we were
that.
when we were growing up. They were
Exactly.
like, what? And so, but now it is so hard for them. So many things telling them that they need to change and this and that. And it's just hard. And so we have to build them up and we have to ground them, right? We have to fill them up, speaking to them from now, from birth, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
this world is crazy.
Girl, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Well, okay. Last question before we end it, because it
Okay.
looks like we've gotten a little over an hour. I don't want to hold you because I know you got to get those babies. I have mine. They're
Oh
up.
no, they're in the bed, ma'am. They're in the
Yeah,
bed.
mine did not go to bed because I'm like so loud and like their bedrooms are like right over this office. So like I'm
They
like
probably not sleep, but they in the bed.
they in the bed, they in the bed. Yeah, mine. I was like, y'all just do whatever you got to do tonight. Like you'll go to bed a little later. So, I want to ask, like, what do you do to balance, like, just having time for yourself, spouse? Look, you don't passed out. You don't pass.
I'll let you know when I find out.
So anything, and this is what I was gonna say. If nothing else, self-care. What do you do for just Starr? Like, is there anything that you're doing just so you can have that time for yourself? Nothing.
So I'm gonna tell you what. I struggle. We
Okay.
being full and
Yeah,
transparent.
let's be real. Let's
I
be real.
I struggle with that part. I struggle with doing stuff for
Mhm.
myself. And my therapist will say, I'm like, well, I'll go get my nails done, or I'll go get like, because that makes me feel. She's like, no, that's
She's
not
like,
it.
"No, you need to do a little bit more."
That's not it. Then I will say, and even this, and like this is something that I am working on. Working out for me, like being outside. Like I'm not talking about I don't have a gym membership. I don't want a gym membership. I like to go outside and run. I like to work out in my garage, in the driveway, in my neighborhood. That's where I feel like God downloads to me a lot. I feel
Yeah.
like that's where I get creativity creeps in. It helps me to clear my mind. Yes, it's good for your health, but that really is more so for my mental health. So when I'm doing right, I do that. Right. It's supposed to be twice a week, but then life starts lifing.
It starts lifing. I
And so
know.
I don't always do it like I'm supposed to. But I
But at
like
least
to
you
do
do it.
I
Yes.
like I like to read.
Yeah.
And I'm getting back into it because I ain't gonna tell you no lie. I was an avid reader growing up, loved reading, went to law school, and was like, I'm on a strike from reading.
You was like, that's enough.
That's enough reading. So I've gotten back into reading.
You were reading when I met you though. Because you were reading.
I know. I've gotten back into writing because, like I said, I wrote a book. I used to write growing up,
Yeah.
stopped because it was like life was too hard. And I prayed and asked God to give me my gift back. And so then that's how I was able to write this book. But to be honest, this is going to sound crazy. This is going to sound a little bit crazy.
It's not gonna sound crazy.
I like to like hang out with my family, like and like not do anything. I like just like us to pile up on the couch,
You just cuddle.
watch a movie.
I
It
love.
doesn't take a lot for me. I know that people are like, oh, you have to do all these things. I really don't want to do anything because what is self care for me is for my brain not to have to think. It's for me to not to have to drive anywhere. It's
Yep.
for me to not to have to make any decisions. Like the best gift for me would to be like to go in a hotel. It ain't got to be something all fancy swanked out. I might not even leave the room. I just want to wake up when I want to wake up without an alarm clock. I don't want to have to feed anybody. I don't want to have to do anything. I just want to be. I might not turn the TV on. I just want to be. I don't want to think. Like
Yes,
that is a self-care for
that's
me.
self-care. That's self-care. That's
That's
self.
a self-care. It's hard for me. I recognize because when it comes to I want to make sure everybody's okay. I want to make sure my husband's okay. I want to make sure the kids is okay. I want to make sure the house is okay. And that sounds crazy, but when all of those things are okay, it makes me feel okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's not crazy. That's not crazy. You're just being a heck of a good woman, wife, mother, all of the above.
But
Like,
she ain't got no self-care
but I
regimen.
will say, I know, girl, we got to get the self-care regimen going on because let me say this, because some of us we feel guilty about that, and I'm gonna say like I would feel so guilty for the longest time,
Mhm.
because of the fact like when I start and thankfully because my husband would be the one to push me out. He'd be like, no, you need to go. Like it'd be a girl's trip or something going on, right? No, you need to go. You need to go. And like I would feel so bad about going on a girl's trip, right? Or
Mhm.
just doing something for Robin. But I've learned, and I don't do it a lot, but outside of working out, that is the one thing that I would say consistently that I do. I go take a walk outside. We got our trail down the street and all that stuff. I love it. And that's to your point, that's when I get my creativity every single time. Like it's like God is
Mhm.
always speaking to me every time I get outside and I start walking.
Mhm.
But I say that because some of us, what I've learned, and this is just having clients and just dealing with this myself, is that some of us where it stems from is the narrative that we play in our minds about what a mother should be, right? What a wife should be,
Mhm.
that kind of sacrificial. And I'm not saying it's you, but I'm just saying a lot of us have been guilty of that, and which is another goal of mine with this group is to change that narrative because oftentimes we feel like we have to be last, right? And I learned that when I start putting myself first,
Mhm.
that's when I'm able to take care of my family, like
Mhm.
above and beyond. Like seriously, like happy, fulfilled. I feel like I'm in good health. I don't feel like I'm necessarily like burnt out and tired because I've taken care of myself. So when I need those rest days, I'm telling the kids it's probably not even a rest day, but it may be like I may sleep in a little later. Hey y'all, mommy sleeping in a little later. Mommy needs some time, right? A lot of us feel very guilty about sleeping in late, right? Or just having that moment.
Tap me in. Tap me in. Tap me in because my kids know because I will say, hey, listen, if my bedroom door is closed, they'll be like,
So
are you having mommy time? Because I'll announce it. 'Cause I'll say this,
exactly,
listen, I'll be like, hey,
exactly.
I need 15 minutes. Do
Yeah,
not knock on my door.
I
Do
say the
not
same
do not
thing.
say mommy. Do not say anything.
Right.
I need this mommy
Yep.
time right
That's
here.
me.
And
I
I
say
can just be laying across the bed, not doing a
not
thing.
doing anything. So see, that's your time, right? And so I say we need more of that. Like a lot of us
We
need
do.
more of it because I don't feel like I do enough. But I like to your point, my kids know I'm like, it's mommy's time. And I have that conversation, guys. I love you guys. I promise you, when mommy gets recharged, when mommy is good, when mommy goes down to the basement and get this workout in, I promise you, I'm all yours for the rest of the day, right? Like if it's on the weekend. And so I try to be more transparent. If I'm tired, if I'm exhausted, hey, mommy just needs a quick break. Like I'll come back to it, whatever. And then, we get back into it. So anyway, ladies, don't be ashamed. Don't feel bad about that. Let's change that narrative about being a good mother, being a good wife. We got to take care of ourselves more. Like we cannot be sitting here putting ourselves last. Okay.
That's
So
right.
anyway, look, Starr, I see that we are way behind time, but girl, this is such a good conversation. Like,
It was. Thank you. Well, I mean, you know how we do.
girl, I
So
know how we look,
every time.
listen. Every time we can easily like stay on the phone, like catching up, and we'd be like, okay, like we really need to go. Like we got other stuff going on. But girl, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for
Thank
just taking
you.
this time to be here on this platform. And I definitely want to get you back because I want to check in and see how the Starr Institute is going at some point. So, how did your walk go? By the way, I have to ask that before we jump off.
Oh, we did good. We added another state because our goal
Woo!
is to have participation in all 50 states. So
Okay.
we are in 33 states and 3 countries. We had a
Yes.
great turnout. And
awesome, girl.
we are well on our way. We'll start our end of the year campaign because it was kind of the race and the end of the year campaign because we're raising $30,000. So we're over 11,000 right now.
That is awesome. Okay, well, tell everybody, where can they find you? Where can they donate to?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So on Facebook at the Starr Institute, and that's Starr with 2 R's. On Instagram at the Starr Institute _. We're also on, well, I'm on LinkedIn. My first name is Shavantane. So Shavantane Starr Davis, and TikTok. Starr Davis. So, find us. We're always looking for volunteers and donors. We love to, if you are, in leadership at a school, if you're a teacher, if you work for, a youth servant organization, we would love to come and do our workshop series for your youth. And it takes all of us to do this together.
It
We need
does.
y'all.
Yes, let's change the narrative together.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Starr. And ladies, I hope everyone has a fantastic night. I know it's late, so I will see you all back again next week.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so